Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the brand new edition, hot off the presses, of The Weekly Hero. I'm, of course, your host, John Capia. Thanks for being here, guys. And I'm, of course, joined in this open discussion about all things comic books as they pertain to the big screen and the little screen, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing, sir?
I'm good. You know, this is our last Weekly Hero for the year.
It is.
And we've received a wealth of riches this year.
We have.
On the big and the small screen.
It is crazy. We were talking just a little bit. We were having lunch, and we were talking about how, I remember just a couple of years ago doing a show at AMC and saying, guys, we've had 3 comic book movies this year. 3 in the same year. We just had 7 major comic book films this year. And it is a ridiculous. And not only that, we got like 7 or 8 full-length TV shows going of comic book properties and everything. It has been a crazy good year for that.
We even got 2 versions of the same Deadpool movie.
That's right. That's right. I suppose I should have counted that one
Which
as well.
is so weird. I mean, it's weird and wonderful, but weird nonetheless.
Well, listen, guys, we're going to get things started here by, as we're ending off this year, and it is our final The Weekly Hero for 2018. We might as well talk about a movie coming up in 2019. Of course, we've been waiting for a while for the first installment of a trailer for the new Hellboy. Of course, with the guy from Stranger Things, David, I'm forgetting his last name off the top of my head. But at any rate, he's going to be in it as well. What's that? David Harbour. Thank you very much. Ian McShane is in it as well. All these guys. Ian McShane is a great choice for this. We've been waiting now. We thought it was going to come earlier because the movie, I believe, was originally going to open in January. It's now opening in April. We got our first trailer for it. It dropped. Robert, it wasn't the trailer we were expecting.
No, I was surprised at how tongue-in-cheek it was.
Right.
Even from the music to they really concentrated on the jokes. I mean, there was one joke we talked about as we were walking into lunch, the ID joke. Do you have any ID?
I need your ID. Are you serious?
I mean,
that was good.
There was some good stuff in there, but it wasn't like this hardcore, blood-drenched, R-rated movie that we've been promised, or at least it didn't appear to be that way from the trailer. But it was just a trailer. It was our first look at the film. I like Harbour's as Hellboy. I like McShane, and it looks like there's some really cool, and Mila Jovovich is, of course, I love her. But there's some cool demons and creatures. I love when Hellboy gets smashed in the forest by the giant hammer or whatever that was. It was great. But it didn't look like the fanciful Hellboy that were the Golden Army. It looks different, but it doesn't look. Maybe the Deadpool influence? I don't know.
Okay, first off, I think Harbour looks great.
Yeah, he does.
I think he looks great. This Hellboy looks fantastic. Not too much of a variation off of the Perlman Hellboy, which is good because the Perlman Hellboy was a real good start.
Right.
And so they just took it a little bit edgier and stuff like that. Now, I am with you and a lot of people. I was expecting a darker trailer,
right?
A little bit more grim trailer. But let's be honest, the trailer that a lot of us were expecting is the trailer to a movie that makes $11 million opening weekend, and maybe if it's lucky makes $200 million overall by the end of the day.
Right.
I don't believe this has to be an either or situation. I don't think this is a movie that either has to have the horror or it's got to have light entertainment. You can do both and. This is a situation, one of these movies that I think you can do both and. They chose, at least their marketing department chose, to go for the, guys, this is the entertainment you're going to get from this. And they went for, again, the Billy Idol song was a very interesting choice.
Yeah.
One I never would have saw coming, and it threw me off at first. By the time the trailer ended, I was tuning into what they were going for. I'm like, okay, I get this. And they did show us a lot of the very demonic imagery to show that this stuff is going to be here, but this is going to be a both and trailer and a both and movie. We're going to give you dark, harder, like horror elements, but we're also going to give you light entertainment kind of elements at the same time. They look at something like Deadpool and they say, okay, they could go raunchy, dirty, and light, funny. And I think what they're doing is they're looking at that and going, okay, now can we strike that same kind of balance instead of raunchy horror elements and do both? It's a tricky proposition. it is a very, very delicate tight wire they're going to try to walk. I'm going to tell you this. If they can pull it off, they could have a movie that hits on a lot of quadrants and becomes actually quite a big hit with a lot of people. But again, I just suspect, and we talked about this in the car, that because we saw the trailer in the car. We were literally in the car when the trailer dropped. And we talked about this in the car.
Well, I should point out, we weren't driving.
No,
when we were watching the trailer.
We were parked along the side of the road, everybody. We were parked. But we were in the car, and we said, when you surprise people, you often get a negative reaction. If you don't give people what they're expecting, there'll be a negative reaction. There's already a lot of negative reaction to this trailer online, and I get it.
Right.
I'm not going to poo-poo anybody for having a negative reaction. It's not what we were expecting. But I think once we get over that initial shock, we can still go, but you know what? This is a movie that looks like it has promise. So that's how it ended for me. Rob, when you got over the initial kind of surprise of what this trailer was giving us, where did you land on with this?
Well, to me, it looks really interesting. I mean, it looks like it's more, as I once again, has more verisimilitude than the other Hellboy movies. It's set much more in the real world. The trailer, I'm sure the marketing department's like, it's more along the lines of Deadpool or Aquaman. Let's emphasize the bro Hellboy, dude.
Which, by the way, is not far off from the Perlman Hellboy.
No, not at all.
The Perlman Hellboy had lots of that.
He did, but this was more, I think, but it seemed a little looser in this version. I don't know if that means, I'll have to see it. But it was surprising to me that even the demonic action when Hellboy looks to get his ass kicked was kind of funny. When he gets knocked back, and the threat, you got Mila Jovovich as a big bad in this movie, and I felt that the whole thing was lighthearted. Even when the demons show up, it's kind of like, of course the demons are going to show up, and Hellboy's going to kick their ass. But I hope that there is also an element, that dark H.P. Lovecraft, Cthulhu, Mike Mignola drawing what he looked like. I hope that it's a fusion, like you said, of the two. Like you can have both. But this was, even the danger seemed kind of funny.
You know what it feels like they're going for a bit? It feels like they're going for a little bit of an Army of Darkness feel.
Yeah.
Army of Darkness, which is one of the few that have done the both and right. Lots of horror have tried to be horror comedy and stuff like that. Very few nail it the way Army of Darkness did. And the whole Living Dead sort of part, where it's, this is legitly horror. It has legit horror elements. And yet at the same time, it is legitly funny and legitly entertaining.
Right.
But that's not easy to nail. Just because Army of Darkness did it doesn't mean just anybody can come and do it. But listen, you got the director of The Descent. That gives me a lot, because The Descent is my second all-time favorite horror film. You have Mike Mignola, who was heavily involved in the development of this right from the beginning. I think the design elements they nailed. I think the design elements look like they're right on the money. And again, you know what? You talked about this once, and I think you were so right. It was about another movie. We mentioned that our entire perception of a trailer, and by extension, our entire perception of a movie, can be completely fundamentally altered by what song they choose to play in the trailer.
Yeah.
Because you play that exact same trailer, but with something not Moni Moni by Billy Idol.
Right.
And the trailer has a completely different feel, but if they played that song, I thought that was a very interesting choice. I'm not going to say good or bad, but it was a very interesting choice.
Yeah.
And if nothing else, it's going to get us talking about it. It's going to get people talking.
And we are now. Well, I mean, and I really like Neil Marshall. I've met him in person. He's a really nice guy. I think he's a talented director.
Yeah.
He's a little hit and miss sometimes. I mean, Doomsday is a movie I really like, but it's goofy. It's like 10 different movies in one. It was
a divisive one. There are people who loved it, people who didn't.
Yeah, and it's such a great John Carpenter homage, which is one of the reasons I love it so much. But The Descent, I loved Centurion, his film Centurion, and Dog Soldiers, his first feature, also great. And he's directed great episodes of Game of Thrones as well. So I have high hopes for this movie, and I want it to be wildly successful. I'd love to see the character come back. I've always loved the comics, and I've got the hardcover super deluxe. They're not super adult. That's something else I have. The super deluxe edition of those Hellboy comics, which is great. And I want to see Hellboy get his due again on the big screen. I thought Guillermo del Toro's were good, but again, the tone was all over the place to me. Sometimes it was great. Sometimes it was like too much.
I'm in the minority. I actually preferred the first Hellboy to the second. I know a lot of people liked
Golden Army. Yeah.
They like that one more. I'm in the minority. I like the original one better, although I like Golden Army as well.
Yeah.
I tell you what, one of the things they nailed in this, and I think you and I will both agree about this, Ian McShane.
Oh.
And right from his narration and everything, whatever we can all have different opinions about the music choice and the tone choice, whatever, I think most of us are all going to agree, yeah, the Ian McShane stuff worked. I think even people who hated this trailer are going to go, yeah, but the Ian McShane stuff worked.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, Ian McShane could read the phone book.
Yeah.
And I'd be entertained.
And make you feel like you're a scumbag
right.
as he's reading the phone book.
And then he was going to kill you.
He can belittle you and threaten you while reading the phone book all at the same time. You know, bottom line for me is, by the time this trailer ended, I'm not going to say I love this trailer.
No.
But I'm also not going to say I hated this trailer. If nothing else, color me fascinated by the trailer. I'm fascinated by it. Like, the choices that they made. It's just a first trailer. But I got to say, by the end of it, I'm like, okay, what are you going to show me next?
That's how I felt too. I mean, if a trailer is supposed to intrigue you and pique your interest, color my interest piqued.
Right.
I didn't know how to feel about this movie at all. Now I'm interested. Now I'm like, oh, this is fascinating. I mean, I'm in.
It's one of those trailers for me on both sides. It piqued my optimism for the movie.
Right.
And it also piqued but this could be a disaster. Like, I kind of raised them both at the same time. So I don't know. We'll have to kind of see how this all turns out. What did you guys think about the new Hellboy trailer? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are you like us that were like, we're not sure how to feel about it, but it was interesting? Where do you guys fall in that? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, let's move on to this. From films that are coming out in 2019 to a film that is, well, a few of us have already seen it and is opening up this coming weekend. Aquaman. Now, Aquaman is a movie that has gone on an epic journey, even as far as its tracking numbers go.
Right.
You know, we heard 60 million, we heard 65 million, we heard 55 million, but the latest tracking numbers, now the final tracking numbers as the film opens up this weekend, have come in, again, a little bit different, Robert. Where they come in?
They're going higher. You know, they're going up. I mean, I think I read 75 million now.
Right.
They're thinking 75, 78. They think easily going to win the weekend. That Mary Poppins is only going to take in 30 or 35 million, which I think is woefully underestimating where Mary Poppins is.
I think it's going to come around 40. I think it's going to come in around 40.
But I think, look, Aquaman was a hit in China. It's coming on. There's a lot of goodwill to this movie. I do think it's going to be, the fan community is going to be split over this film. I really believe they will be split because the tone of this movie is so different than the other comic book movies that we've been getting. If Logan is on one side, you know, with the very serious, dour, realistic superhero movies, and then The Dark Knight is somewhere a little bit next to that, Aquaman's way over here. We haven't seen, I mean, this is just this epic, balls to the wall, everything but the kitchen sink is in this movie. I mean, look, Black Manta, this guy is running around with a gigantic black helmet with Atlantean death rays, you know, that he's made himself. And he used to be a pirate that was stealing nuclear submarines. I won't say why or for whom, but this has everything. You want that? You want Aquaman and Mara jumping out of a plane over a desert? I guess they can just fly. Like, it's even in Batman v Superman or Justice League, why does Aquaman fly? Like,
well, in the New 52 comics, he flies.
I know he flies. It's just I guess he just does, and that's what I like about Aquaman. You just never know from one scene to the next what's going to happen in Aquaman. If you can go with that, I think you're going to have a lot of fun. A lot of people are going to wish, I think, that it was a little bit more grounded in realism because it's not at all. I mean,
no, not in the least. And to me, that's fine. You're talking about a guy called Aquaman.
Right.
Who has been the butt end of all the jokes for decades when it comes to superheroes. I mean, we came out of the screening the other night, and my assistant, there was about 6 of us there, and my assistant put out her phone and played that old clip from Family Guy. Have you ever seen that clip? Where it's like, this girl's getting attacked on the beach. She's like, somebody help. And Aquaman sticks his head up out of the water, 20 feet in the water, goes, hey, you better stop. And he doesn't stop. He goes, man, you're lucky you're not over here in the water, or else I'd stop you. And he starts throwing starfish at them. Because that's the perception people had of Aquaman for so long, right?
Yeah.
But now what do we have? They instantly broke that by casting a Jason Momoa, which is great.
Right.
They fundamentally changed him in the comics to start with which is great. We've got a little bit. I kind of liken that this Aquaman we have is kind of 50% the new 52 Aquaman and 50% that old Aquaman who went Kurt Cobain, Seattle grunge metal, and missing a hand with a hook for a hand, right? And they've kind of made an amalgamation of that character for it. And look, this has been a magnificent year for comic book movies, and I believe that is partially, and I've said for a while, I believe that's going to play into more people being in a very positive mind frame for comic book movies. I think a lot of people have seen Black Panther this year. They saw Deadpool 2. They saw Avengers Infinity War. They saw Ant-Man and the Wasp. They've seen these really good, fun comic book movies, and they're just on a roll. Comic book movies right now are on a roll.
Right. Well, they deliver, I mean, whatever you think of it, Aquaman is hugely entertaining.
Yes.
I mean, it was so much fun to watch, and I am just tickled to death that Julie Andrews,
she
voices
Speaking of Mary Poppins.
She voices a creature in this movie, and it opens the same weekend as Mary Poppins Returns,
which is kind of poetic.
It is. There's something really
poetic.
I'm always talking about how why are you complaining? We're getting more wondrous things. If you're a geek, you're getting everything you could ever want. And now this weekend, we're getting Julie Andrews back on screen, at least voicing a character, along with a new Mary Poppins.
And by the way,
let's
not forget, I know we're supposed to be focusing on the comic book movies here, but another really good movie opens this weekend in Bumblebee, which just shocked me. Because I haven't liked a Transformers movie since the first Michael Bay one 4 films ago.
Yeah.
And this, I'll actually say it's probably the best movie opening up this weekend. But then again, I haven't seen Mary Poppins yet. I'm going to go see that tonight. But look, so there are going to be some people who are going to be tempted to go. In the era that we live in with, these movies open to $190 million and these movies open to $200 million. We're going to hear, if it does hit 75, which, by the way, I'm not convinced it will, but if it does hit 75 opening weekend, there are going to be people tempted to go, 75 million, what went wrong? I mean, Infinity War made 250 or 260, whatever it was, right? So if this movie hits 75 million, that is a huge win.
Oh, yeah.
That is a massive win, especially when you consider this movie was coming off Justice League.
Yeah.
That was the lowest performing of all the DC films, left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. And it looks like that 1 year layoff that we were criticizing I was criticizing Warner Brothers for, may have just been a brilliant move on their part. Let all these other great comic book movies come out, cleanse everybody's palate. Now the Aquaman comes out, trailers look good, James Wan is directing it, reviews are good. If they'd hit 75 million, there are going to be some people out there trying to spin that negative. That's a huge positive. Is it Avengers numbers? No, but nobody was ever dreaming Aquaman. If this thing made $75 million opening weekend, my God, that is a huge win, and it's got to give them a lot of momentum going into Shazam in 2019.
I think the real lesson, though, is it increases diversity. And when I say diversity, I'm not talking about the diversity of the cast.
Right.
I'm talking about the diversity of tone that can be achieved in these comic book movies. Yes. I mean, this is an unabashed, swashbuckling, sci-fi, fantasy, wacky adventure cranked up to 11 time at the movies.
Yeah. Some people are going to be tempted to say, so they're doing it the Marvel way. No, this is different than Marvel movies. This is much more in that direction than Marvel movies are.
I mean, there is no semblance of the real world in this movie. I mean, even Tamora Morrison, who plays Aquaman's his father, his human father, he's
Jango Fett. Get it right.
Yeah, pardon me, Jango Fett.
I'm pretty sure that's his legal name.
Once we're warriors, Tamora Morrison. I mean, he lives in a lighthouse. It's like this movie is a fantasy from the opening Momoa voiceover. Yep. I mean, there is no semblance. You barely even see the real world except through goofy news broadcasts.
Yeah,
I mean,
even then it's minimal.
Yeah, and then it's minimal. I don't think there's one shot in this entire film that isn't green screen assisted or some kind of weird visual effects assist of some kind.
But bringing it back to what the bottom line here, the topic is, where do you think this movie's going to come in this weekend? Like, how much? And people say, why do you care so much? It's not about the money. It's how much, because box office, the reason I'm so obsessed with box office isn't because of how much money is the studio making. No, box office tells us how much were people motivated to want to see this film.
Right, exactly.
That's what it tells us. So let me ask you, Robert, with all the things that we know because we've seen the film, all the things that the public is hearing about it, the trailers that we've had, the position that's in the current context, it's opening against the Mary Poppins, against the Bumblebee, things like that. At the end of the day, What do you think the opening weekend of this movie is going to be? How many people do you see going out to see Aquaman this weekend?
I think a lot of people are going to go to Aquaman because I think people are out of school now. Next week's Christmas. And this is the kind of movie that kids are. If I was 8 years old, this movie would have blown my mind. And I think
you're older than 8, and it kind of blew
my mind. But I think, and also you have a strong female protagonist in Mara. So there's girls and boys that are equally represented in this film. I think families are going to go. I think kids are going to want to see this movie again. I think parents are going to be like, "No, we'll go again." You know, I think this movie is going to do more than people thought. I wouldn't be surprised if this edges close to 100 million for the weekend.
Really?
Yeah, even with all the competition, because look, it's you've got Bumblebee that appeals to kids and adults too, but this movie, it really shows you something you haven't seen before.
I'm okay. Closer. Okay, you're going closer to 100 million. I'm going to say 70.
All right.
Which I think would be a massive win for this movie. I think that would be an incredible result if it gets in 70. So we'll come back from the new year and we'll see which one of us was closer. Will it be closer to 100 or will it be closer to 70? We'll have to wait and see. All right. With that out of the way, you know, we are here at the end of the year. And the other day on the John Campea show, somebody asked me my top 5 favorite comic book movies of the year. Now, you weren't able to participate in that because at the time you hadn't seen Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse yet.
And I still haven't.
Yeah, you still haven't. But being the final edition of the Weekly Hero for the year, we need to get your top 5 comic book movies of the year. Understanding that you have not yet seen Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, so it would jump in there somewhere. But as it is, for the movies you've seen all the rest of them. How does your top 5 work out?
Well, I'll tell you, first of all, you know, top 5 live action superhero movies, because everyone knows animation isn't real.
Everything else
is, but animation, that was the old joke we used to tell on Starship Smackdown at the end of the San Diego Comic-Con. I've been doing this panel for almost 2 decades now, and the joke was if there was a spaceship that was animated, we didn't let it compete in Starship Smackdown because it wasn't real. So in 2010, when the space battleship Yamato movie came out in Japan, the Star Blazers, the Argo, it could finally compete because it became real. It was no longer just animated. So,
although it was animated, just a different kind of animation.
No, it's real. Okay, bringing up the bottom of my list is going to be Deadpool 2.
This is number 5.
This is number 5. At number 5, it's going to be Deadpool 2. I was not as big a fan of this movie as I was. I love the first Deadpool. This film, I thought getting rid of the love interest early on didn't really work at first, but then I did buy the extended version on Blu-ray,
right?
And I've watched it a couple times.
Cut,
the super duper, yeah, with the or whatever, yes, that cut. I have developed a fondness for this movie the more I watch it, and it's not as good as Deadpool 1, but I wasn't as annoyed by it seeing it at home as I was in the theater. So I do like Deadpool 2. I think there's a lot to love about it. Like you've talked about what they do with X-Force, it's hilarious.
Oh, it's great.
It's hilarious. But yes, it's number 5 on my list.
And for reference, I liked it more than you did. And
right.
And Deadpool 2 actually was at number 4 on my list.
All right.
I actually, for a while, I struggled about whether or not I liked the first one more or the second one more. I think after seeing a couple times, I comfortably like the first one more, but I was thoroughly entertained by the second. And so it was number 4 on my list.
Yes, number 4 on my list is Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Really?
Yes.
And that one didn't make my top 5.
See, Ant-Man and the Wasp, first of all, I love these characters. I love Paul Rudd. I love seeing Michael Douglas in a superhero movie.
Yeah.
Michelle Pfeiffer remains to this day one of my favorite. Talk about a crush that hasn't gone away since Scarface in 1983. I mean, Michelle Pfeiffer is like fine wine. I still think she's as beautiful as ever, and I love to see her back on the big screen in a movie like this. I did like the setup of the quantum realm and everything that was going on. I liked look, they are so clever with the sizing of things.
Yes.
What they do, you know, when he becomes Giant Man in the water and the ferry scene. I just like this film. To me, this is like the heart to heart of superhero movies. The way that you have Stephanie Powers and Robert Wagner traveling around the world. You know, it's that kind of a thing.
No one's going to understand that reference.
No, they probably won't.
Give you a warning.
It's an old TV show from the 80s. But it's kind of like I've always thought that I would like to watch, like Steve Rogers and Natasha going around the world in their civilian garb, just like getting into James Bond-like adventures when no one knows. They don't have to put on their superhero costumes. To me, this kind of has that flavor. It's kind of fun and light, and I enjoy these characters.
All right, and again, for point of reference, Ant-Man and the Wasp didn't get on my top 5. I had a really good time with it. I liked it very much, but it was one of my honorable mentions, didn't crack my top 5. All right, so what's number 3?
Number 3 is Black Panther. Now, I really like Black Panther. I think it's an important film for a lot of people worldwide. But I thought that, as I've said before, I really like the setup with Killmonger. But once he gets to Wakanda, it just seems to me, and it annoys me, that everyone just kind of throws up their hands and just decides to follow him. He's a dick. Like, everyone knows he's a dick, and I understand what's happening, and I get it all. But I thought that story, the Wakandans really almost turn on a dime, and it could have been an hour longer, and they could have shown how Killmonger. I think Killmonger is essentially correct. I mean, his beef with the world and the talk of colonization and colonialism and all that is essentially true. But Killmonger, he's a hardened murderer.
Yes.
I mean, and it's stitched onto his body, and why anybody would find that kind of a character, especially the Wakandans are technologically advanced, and they're just so quick to follow him, it seems. Even though he bested, I get it. It's tradition.
It's funny. You've got it as number 3 over Deadpool 2, over Ant-Man and the Watch, but you just spent 3 minutes talking about all the things you hate about the movie.
Well, yeah, I mean,
but it is number 3 on your list.
But the thing is, first of all, I love the cast of this movie. I could watch. They should just make 10 movies in Wakanda. The Dora Milaje, incredible. Okoye, man, do I have a crush on Okoye. I mean, I loved all the characters. Shiri, great. I wanted the movie to be 3 hours long.
I was all about M'Baku.
Oh, and I mean, come on. I mean, how badass was that? No, look, for world building, I love the spy aspects of it. I liked how it was like a Bond film for the first half. I mean, there's so much to love about this movie. My complaints about it are minor quibbles, really, because it's an enjoyable, I love the hell out of watching this movie. And again, I have the 3D Blu-ray that I got from the UK, and I've watched it many times in 3D. And it's, again, I also think it suffers, the last battle seems perfunctory to me.
A little bit.
A little bit. But a hugely enjoyable movie, an important film, lot of fun. Loved it.
So, and for reference sake, I also had Black Panther in at number 3, which makes me really curious about your top 2, because I can guess one of them is in the top 2, but I can't figure out what the other one is.
Number 2 is Aquaman.
Really? You got it all the way up to number 2?
Now, here's the thing. I'm going to say that where I'm coming from is I'm still a kid at heart. I call myself an aging man-child, and I think on my Instagram feed, aging man-child, somewhere I call myself that. I grew up watching Harryhausen movies and Jason and the Argonauts and the Skeleton Battle, and I love Japanese science fiction and kaiju movies and Ultraman and crazy animation and the crazy, wacky fantasy worlds that this movie depicts, right in my wheelhouse.
Right.
And the imagery, and it was just, to me, it's the stuff I've always loved since I was a kid and have sort of retained that love going into adulthood. And I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. The final, spoiler alert, there is a big battle in this movie.
What?
There's a large scale conflict at one point in this movie that's underwater. And I just sat there.
Robert, you're just giving the whole movie.
I just sat there with, like a kid. I was bouncing in my seat. I'm like, yeah, like I felt like I was 5, man. And I just couldn't get enough. I'm like, it would be better if you could put Aquaman in a syringe and I could just mainline it right into my veins, and just be like, rah! It was like when you're a kid and you convince your mother to get you the biggest cotton candy at the fair. It's like that. I felt like that. And I is it the greatest movie in the world? Probably not. But I just had so much fun. And in hindsight, I want to see it badly again.
It's funny. I knew, as we walked out of the theater, because you and I saw it together for the first time about a week ago. I knew you liked it a little bit more than me. I didn't know you liked it that much because, for reference sake, I had my Aquaman for me was at number 5.
Right.
But yes, you have it all the way up at number 2.
I have it up at number 2 because it's so gonzo, and the fact that James Wan just said, I'm just going to put anything I want in this movie. and he did. I mean, you watch this movie and all the detail and the stuff in the background, and it's just, I was loving it because it felt like a movie that came from my childhood.
I thought you were going to say from your butt. I don't know why. It looked like you were forming your lips to say butt.
No, it was just, and it sort of plays into why my number 1 movie is my number 1 movie.
Well, this is like the least dramatic buildup because I think we all know what your number 1 movie is.
And again, because the kind of person I am, by far my number 1 comic book movie was Infinity War. Because first of all, my expectations for this movie were off the charts.
Sure. I think everybody's was.
I was so excited for this movie. I love the MCU and I love what they've done with it, and I love all the actors that play these characters. But as a comic book reader my whole life, this is based on a huge real comic book, the whole Infinity Gauntlet storyline, the Infinity War, the Infinity Crusade, get the omnibus. But also things like Crisis on Infinite Earths. This is the 3rd Avengers movie. I couldn't even believe we got 1 Avengers movie, much less 3. We've got Spider-Man. We've got Black Panther. You've got Wakanda in this movie. What a smart way to follow up Black Panther by bringing us back to Wakanda 3 months later.
Yep.
But this movie was so Thor turns back on a star. A dead neutron star. Like this movie was not just a great comic book movie, and it doesn't just recreate the feeling of reading a much anticipated massive comic book crossover. It's also a grand science fiction film, a grand fantasy movie. The scope of this movie is enormous. The fact that the tone is all over the place. The Guardians are still the Guardians, and who would have thought Rocket Raccoon and Thor would have some of the most poignant moments talking to one another?
The most emotional. I'll tell you what, that scene between Thor and Rocket is probably my favorite scene in all of the MCU.
Oh.
It's probably my favorite single scene in all of the MCUs in that movie.
And then suddenly Tyrion Lannister, Tyrion Lannister, he has a giant dwarf who made the gauntlet. I mean, there's so much in this movie that I never thought I would just see. And I've watched this movie probably more. There hasn't been a modern movie I've watched more since I've had it on video than this movie. I just put it on, even the beginning when Doctor Strange is meeting Tony Stark.
It's great stuff.
And the jokes about the wizards. He came to get a ring from a wizard. I mean, it's just so.
You make me look back in front of the wizard.
Yeah, all that stuff. It's just the humor works. Everything about this movie works. It's, to me, and it has made me unfortunate. And by the way, it exceeded my expectations, because I even said when I was on Heroes back when John Schnepp was still with us, that I just wanted to see this movie end with the snap, and I wanted Thanos to win. I'm like, wouldn't that be cool? Mm-hmm. And he did.
And he did it.
Come on.
So just for reference, Infinity War ended up on the number 2 spot for me on my list. And the one film you haven't seen, which I'm going to be dying to, you got to text me.
I will text you. I'm going to go see it tomorrow.
Right.
So
you got to let me know. But for me, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse ended in the number 1 spot. Infinity War ended in number 2. So just quickly run through again. Number 5 to number 1.
So number 5 was Deadpool 2. Number 4 is Ant-Man and the Wasp. Number 3 is Black Panther. Number 2 is Aquaman. And number 1 is Infinity War. And I'll tell you something. If Avengers Endgame isn't 10 times better than Infinity War, I'm going to be disappointed. I mean, I've never.
Like a little unrealistic.
No, I know, but I've never been set up for my anticipation for a movie and how good it's going to be has never ever in my life been higher than it is for Avengers Endgame.
Which could work against it if everybody goes into it those types of expectations.
I know, but I can't help it. I can't help it.
That's true. Sometimes we don't choose that.
I mean, and there is a time in my life when I felt. There was one time in my life that I set myself up for disappointment, and it was the single most disappointing movie-going experience in my life. And a lot of people are about to be, you're going to come at me. I know. Return of the Jedi is the single most disappointing movie I've ever seen. I saw Empire Strikes Back 26 times in the theater, sat in the same seat every time I saw it in Seattle's late lamented UA 150 theater. I loved Star Wars and Empire so much, and what I expected was a Lord of the Rings, Return of the King-esque, because I had read Tolkien, ending. I wanted to see something where the emotional stakes were so huge and so crazy, where I thought Princess Leia was going to get corrupted by the dark side of the Force, and Luke was going to fight her, and Han would have had to take her life even though he loved her. I I wanted Thrones-esque, Game of Thrones-esque an ending, and I didn't get that. There was something wrong. As soon as 3PO knocks on Jabba the Hutt's palace door, and the thing comes out. Goodness gracious me! I'm like, and the Gamorrean. Anyway, I won't get into it. And
to me, Return of the Jedi is the best Star Wars movie.
See, I can't. As soon as R2 and 3PO are upside down in the sand against an obviously fake backdrop, and they get hoisted up,
so perfectly consistent with what Star Wars is.
Oh God.
Anyway, we won't go into that.
But anyway, so Endgame.
Genre.
Yes.
Different. A lot of expectations for Endgame. All right. Listen, we got a few other things to talk about here, but before we go any further, we have a tradition here in the hallowed pages of the Weekly Hero. That Robert, one of the world's truly great collectors and most knowledgeable guy of all these collectible things we can have, and, the possessor of a great collection, every week he brings in something for us to gawk at. This week is no exception. Our final of the year. You got a little gentleman most of us know over here.
Yes, okay. I don't know why I picked this particular figure today, but it's Wolverine from The Wolverine, the second Wolverine movie, the James Mangold directed Wolverine, and one of the things I like, I don't know why I have an action figure chair fetish. Like, you give me an action figure with a chair, I want it. But there's another thing that I like. I love when you take normal characters, superhero characters that are normally in costume, and put them in like a suit. Put them like in a real world suit. I love this. Is the second Hot Toys Wolverine figure they made. They made a figure of from the Wolverine Origins, X-Men Origins Wolverine. They made that figure. Great figure. He's in his duds and jeans and everything. Then they made this figure. There's a Days of Future Past Wolverine, and there's also an X-Men The Last Stand Wolverine where he's in his X-Men leather duds. But he comes with metal swords. He comes with 2 sets of hands with the bone claws and the adamantium claws. And I figured it's the end of the year. It's New Year's Eve. He's snappily dressed.
He looks sharp.
He's bringing in the new, and his blades are sharp.
Yeah.
He's bringing in the new year. It's a throwback figure.
So good.
And I figured, why not? Why not just put a little cheer and a little formality into the end of the year?
Well, it was a good choice, man. I love this figure. The sword.
Yeah.
And actually, the etchings on the sword look so great.
And it comes with the sheath, too.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Oh,
and
nice.
he comes with, unlike some figures, he does come with a change of clothes and a change of shoes.
Really?
So, yeah, you can put him in his tank top and things. And it's just...
So it's almost like 2 completely different toys. Because you take the suit off and just put it in the tank top.
Yep.
That's like a totally different figure.
Totally different figure. And I thought it was cool. It's not a really elaborate figure, but it's a cool figure. It looks good.
Well, I
on
love
the
it.
shelf.
Thank you for bringing that in today. And you, of course, will be back in 2019 with more figures.
And there's so much good stuff coming down the pike. Oh,
Cannot wait.
I can't wait.
All right, guys. We're going to move on now to our final topic of the day. Now, of course, one of the movies that is coming out that we're all excited about, and Robert's expectations are unrealistically high, but of course is Endgame. We're talking about Endgame here. But Robert, you brought up, there's a theory going around right now.
I read this on the internet. Imagine.
That I thought we'd be remiss if we didn't at least discuss this theory. A theory that basically states that Ultron will be in Endgame and play somewhat of a significant role. Talk about that theory that's out there right now.
Well, if you think about it, in Avengers Age of Ultron, they pay lip service to the Endgame. That's the Endgame is the thought that aliens from outer space, extraterrestrials are going to come to Earth and perhaps be the demise of humanity. And so Stark has created what you had said, reminded me of, that he wants to put a suit of armor around the world.
Right.
So the whole Ultron initiative, that was a mistake. What happened was a mistake. It was a result of a number of different things. You should see the movie. I love Avengers Age of Ultron unapologetically. I've had my Ultron figure on this very desk.
Yes, you have.
So I think it's really interesting that it would bring the movies full circle to Stark's story. I don't know how Ultron would play into this,
right?
But the idea of that armor around the world, they've mentioned Endgame twice now. Doctor Strange said it in Infinity War, and it was began with Stark. And I think, wouldn't it be cool the way they brought Red Skull back? No one knew Red Skull was in Infinity War,
right?
I mean, they even got a Hugo Weaving sound-alike. And when I first heard his voice, I remember I turned to Schnepp, and I'm like. And he turned to me, and we're like, "Was that the Red Skull?" And it was we couldn't believe it. And I think that bringing Ultron back, wouldn't that be cool? And it would sort of, a lot of people don't like Age of Ultron as much as Avengers 1. or as much as Infinity War, but I did. And what
Right.
a cool thing! What a cool thing to do. You know, if somehow, and I don't know how Ultron would play into this, because I've heard there's all these different theories. I mean, I still think that the all good things theory that Kevin Feige talked about, the end of Star Trek: The Next Generation, that time travel is going to play a part.
Right.
And if they do time travel, why would they only time travel to the original Avengers movie, Avengers 1? Why wouldn't they have, what if you needed Ultron to do something? Like, wouldn't that be cool? It would just tie it all up in a bow.
And not just the Avengers movie, any time period of any of the MCU films.
Right.
I mean, it kind of opens up that entire breadbasket, if you will.
Yes. And I think, like with Infinity War, we knew nothing. The world premiere was the day before. We went to the press screening that next morning. I'm glad, because I didn't know anything. That's part of the reason I loved Infinity War so much, is I knew nothing about it. But this I think I don't know if I read it on Nerdist about this theory. I had never heard somebody say that Ultron might be in the film. I don't know if they know that or if it's a theory or what, but I just think that's really cool.
Well, Ultron is a formidable character.
Right.
I mean, especially once they gave him adamantium. Oh, sorry, not adamantium. I'm sorry. They gave him vibranium.
Right.
Once they gave him vibranium, then it became a totally. So it kind of plays into it. The problem, I mean, where it becomes a problem, because I've heard some people say, what if they get Ultron to side with them? Like they either reboot him somehow or they time travel and get him. The problem is he wouldn't be, because you've had stories told before where there was a bad guy, but later there's a bigger bad guy. So the original bad guy's like, well, I'm not that bad. And they team up with the hero to bring down the true bad guy, right? I don't know that that's something you would see with an Ultron, because in Ultron's opinion, Thanos only did half the job. Remember, Ultron ultimately thought the only way for there to be peace is to wipe out humanity entirely, not just half of them, all of them, right? So it would be interesting. So if they did say they were bringing in an Ultron, which I think opens up some wildly interesting possibilities, not to mention it just gets us back the voice of James Spader, of James Spader back, which James Spader's got one of the best voices in entertainment, by the way. I watch The Blacklist just so I can hear him talk.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. That's the only, I watch that show to hear him talk.
Plus, Ultron played a part in the creation of Vision.
Yes,
so
a significant
part. And Vision's been sort of toasted. He's not left in a good way by the end.
No, we watched him die twice in the span of about 3 minutes.
Absolutely, and maybe somehow that plays into Ultron. Who knows?
Right.
Maybe Stark is forced to recreate Ultron for whatever reason. The funny thing about this, I don't necessarily think Thanos is going to be the big bad in this movie.
We've talked about that before.
Yeah,
I think it's a distinct possibility he's not.
I think there's why wouldn't they introduce Ultron has come back many, many, many times in the Marvel comic book universe.
Yes, he has.
You've got time traveling villains like Kang. And if there's time travel involved, maybe Kang plays a part. Who knows? I mean, the Avengers might find some unlikely allies by other people that are pissed that half their planet was dusted by Thanos. I mean, it's not just
Skrulls.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are going to be pissed.
A Shi'ar Empire.
Yes,
I mean a little bit too early for that, but yeah.
But there's a lot of people that are. It's not just the Earth that's angry that half their population's dusted. So I think that there's going to be. We're still thinking about this movie in terms of the core Avengers team and what's going to happen. I think this movie is going to be epic on a scale we don't yet know. And by the way, I don't want to know. I don't want to know until I sit and watch that movie. Yep. 3 hours of awesome goodness. I think we're going to have reveals that are far more shocking than the Red Skull reveal. I think we're going to be seeing a lot.
With all the surprising things that happened in Infinity War, the Red Skull, because I was at the premiere and I was sitting beside Anne, and the Red Skull reveal was the only time that movie, literally my jaw opened. Like I went, and I turned around, that's Red Skull. And I thought it was Hugo Weaving. But I thought, no, but Hugo Weaving would never come back. But I thought they did such a good job making him look like him and making him sound like him. It was such a great moment. And if they can pull a Hugo Weaving and pull a Red Skull with Ultron, it does open up some interesting possibilities depending on what the overall story is.
Right.
As long as it fits the story. They just put him in there for the sake of saying, look, everybody, Ultron's back. Well, then that's wasted screen time. But if it fits into the story,
I just think that they know.
Of course.
See, the movies. The great thing about this is that it's already done.
Oh yeah, it's finished.
You know, they're
editing
doing,
it now.
yeah, they're doing the effects and scoring and all that, whatever they need to do. But they're probably. I think Kevin Feige is sitting with Bob Iger, you know, in a room somewhere before they break for the Christmas holiday. Just looking at the cost benefit analysis of the year of 2019, and they're as they watch whatever iteration Endgame is in right now, they probably just sit in their office and watch how it is right now. They can watch the movie right now and just with big smiles on their face, they know what they have, they know what they've made, and it's going to be huge.
Or they're going, oh crap, we messed this one up.
No, they
messed this one up. It's going to be a disaster. I'm calling it right here. Avengers Endgame is going to make $275 million at the box office total worldwide. That's it.
No. No, but I, as I always say, I'm deliriously excited, and it's only 5 months. It's less than 5. Well, it's about 5 months. Well, 4.5 months away now. I can't wait, dude. Dude, come on.
Got a lot of good stuff coming. All right, guys, that will do it for this year's The Weekly Hero. Thank you so much for being here, guys. You know what? Just honestly, thank you guys so much for even letting us have a show. And, you know, right. Robert and I love being able to sit down and talk about this stuff, but it would be kind of pointless if we didn't have somebody to talk to it about, which is you guys. And so I think I speak on behalf of Robert and myself. Thank you so much for letting us have this show this year. We've got plans for 2019. We are so glad that you guys are going to be part of it with us as well. And we hope that you guys have a fantastic holiday season, celebrating it in whatever way fits you, as long as you have a relaxing, enjoyable, fun time that you can recharge the batteries and come back ready to kick the ass of 2019. I want to thank, of course, the guy, not just today, who has been here with me for the Weekly Heroes. We've gotten this show started, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, I hope you have a fabulous holiday season. Where can people find you online?
Well, first of all, I just want to remind everyone the year 2019 is where Blade Runner takes place.
Oh, my God.
We've reached the Blade Runner year. Can you believe that? But you can find me online. You can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM. You can find me on Instagram at RMBurnett. And you can find me on my YouTube channel, The Burnett Work. I did these 2 impromptu live chats last week, and people have been clamoring. I think I'll do 1 a day over the holiday season just to talk to all you people, because what am I going to do over that season besides sit at home and twiddle my thumbs and read books and build models and, you know, dream of superheroes.
And I'll let you guys know, too, that even though I am heading up to Canada, this coming weekend, I'll be flying out to Canada for the holiday season, and we'll be taking 2 weeks off of the regular John Campea show. Right. I'm bringing some gear with me, and there will be open mics almost every day. Because I know because I remember last Christmas, I took holiday weekend and everybody was just like, we need to talk about movies. I'm like, all right. And we were going to do that. So we will be doing open mics every single day, just an open chat forum for us to talk about movies. So we'll be back. But then we'll be back here in the studio. And don't forget, I will be back here in studio tomorrow morning for the John Campea show at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And you guys make sure you're following me on Twitter, simply at John Campea. That will do us for us, guys, here on the hollowed pages of The Weekly Hero. We're closing the back page and also closing a page for the year of 2018. We'll, of course, be back in 2019 with The Weekly Hero. We hope you'll join us then. That'll do it for now. My name's John Campea, guys, and until next time, bye-bye.